You feel it before you can name it. That dull ache behind your eyes. The heaviness in your limbs that tells you today is already lost. So you do what everyone does. You reach for something in the cabinet, maybe search your symptoms online, maybe call a doctor. It takes minutes. You barely think about it. 2,000 years ago, someone in Rome woke up feeling exactly the same way. And what they did next was nothing like what you would expect. The real answer is far stranger than the history books let on. Rome was the most medically advanced civilization on Earth. For centuries, that is what historians told us. Aqueducts, sewers, military field surgeons. The Romans knew things about the human body that most of the ancient world had only guessed at. But here is what that story leaves out. For most Roman citizens, not soldiers, not emperors, but ordinary people living in ordinary homes, getting sick was not a medical event. It was a spiritual one. When your body gave out, you did not reach for medicine first. You reached for the gods. A sick Roman would make a vow, called a votum, to a deity in exchange for healing. The deal was simple. If the god cured you, you would give something back. A carved stone tablet, a small bronze figurine, an animal sacrifice, sometimes a donation to a temple. This was not superstition kept alive only by the poor or the uneducated. Roman senators made these vows. Roman generals made them on the eve of campaigns. Emperor Augustus, who ruled the most powerful empire on earth, reportedly offered public vows on behalf of his own health during periods of serious illness. Did the vows embarrass him? Not in the slightest. To be Roman was to believe the gods were watching your body as closely as they watched your wars. The deity most Romans turned to was Asclepius, the god of medicine, depicted holding a staff with a serpent coiled around it. That image is over 2,500 years old. You still see it today on ambulances, on hospital signage, on the logos of medical associations worldwide. His temples were called Asclepia, and they functioned in a way that has no real equivalent in your world. You would arrive sick. You would bathe. Ritual cleanliness was non-negotiable, and abstain from certain foods before entering the sanctuary. Then you would sleep inside the temple itself. Not metaphorically. Literally sleep on the floor of the god's house, sometimes on the skin of a sacrificed animal laid out for that purpose. This practice was called incubation, from the Latin incubare meaning to lie upon. The idea was that while you slept in the god's presence, Asclepius would appear to you in a dream and either heal you directly or deliver precise instructions for your recovery. Some inscriptions recovered from the healing sanctuary at Epidaurus in Greece describe patients waking cured of blindness, of paralysis, of wounds that had not closed for years. These are their own words, carved permanently into stone because they wanted the miracle remembered. Historian Aelius Aristides, writing in the 2nd century, left behind some of the most detailed personal records of this practice ever found. He spent years living near the Asclepion at Pergamon during a period of prolonged illness no physician had resolved. His accounts describe Asclepius prescribing cold baths in winter, bizarre dietary restrictions, fasting that lasted for days, mud treatments, long punishing walks. And Aristides followed every instruction without question. He believed the god was speaking to him through his own dreaming mind. Now pause here, because it would be easy to read all of this and conclude these people were simply wrong, that they were replacing real medicine with wishful thinking. But that conclusion misses something crucial about what was actually happening inside those temples. Classical scholar Emma Edelstein, in her landmark study Asclepius, a collection and interpretation of the Testimonies, argued the Asclepian sanctuaries were not purely mystical environments. They were also something close to proto-clinical ones. The priests observed patterns across thousands of patients over hundreds of years. They kept records. The location of these temples, almost always near clean water, rivers, cool elevated air, had genuine therapeutic value. Rest, fasting, and bathing were not medically useless. Some of the healing that happened there was real. The Romans simply gave it an explanation their world could hold. But not every sick Roman was waiting for a dream. The wealthier you were, the more your options expanded. If you could afford it, you hired a medicus, a physician. And here is where Roman medicine becomes genuinely surprising, because the most respected physicians in Rome were almost never Roman. The Romans had a phrase for this: Graecia captiferum victorum cepit, captured Greece captured her wild conqueror. They defeated the Greeks militarily and absorbed their intellectual tradition completely. Great physician Galen, who served under Marcus Aurelius and whose writings shaped Western medicine for over 1,000 years, was born in Pergamon and trained across the Greek-speaking world. He performed public dissections to prove his theories. He argued with rival physicians in front of crowds. He was, by any measure, a scientist operating in an era that had no word for science yet. Galen believed the body was governed by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health was their balance. Sickness was their disruption. If you had a fever, you carried too much heat. You needed cooling foods, rest, perhaps a bloodletting to drain the excess. This sounds like guesswork now, but it was an internally consistent system, carefully observed, that gave physicians a working framework no purely religious approach could match. Galen was wrong about the mechanisms, but he was building something. He was accumulating observations that would outlast him by centuries. Here is what most people miss. These two systems, the divine and the clinical, were not competing. They ran in parallel. Most Romans moved between them without any sense of contradiction. You could sleep in the Asclepian and consult a medicus in the same week and feel no more conflict than you would checking WebMD and then calling your doctor. The gods controlled the deeper forces of the universe. The physician managed the body's mechanics. Both were true at the same time. Then there were the remedies. And this is where things become vivid. Pliny the Elder, in his Encyclopaedia Naturalis Historia, recommended honey for wounds, now confirmed to have antimicrobial properties. He recommended willow bark for fever. Willow bark contains salicin, the compound aspirin is made from. He also recommended wearing a live spider around your neck to prevent fever. Inside the same tradition, real pharmacological knowledge and magical thinking traveled together, inseparable. The people who discovered that willow bark worked were the same people who believed fever was divine punishment. They did not need to know why it worked. They just needed to remember that it did. The Roman poor had none of these options. Illness was managed at home, using knowledge passed down through generations, overseen by the paterfamilias, the male head of the family. Cato the Elder treated his entire household himself, using almost nothing but cabbage, raw boiled as a poultice. He lived to 85. When you look at Roman medicine whole, the prayers and the surgeries, the dream temples and the field hospitals, the wolf skulls and the willow bark, you are not looking at primitive system waiting to grow up. You are looking at a system doing what every medical tradition has always done, pairing what is observable with what is emotionally necessary. The herbs and the knife address the body. The vow and the dream address the terror. Because sickness is not only a physical event. It is a confrontation with how little control you have over the thing you live inside. Tonight, if something does not feel right, you will reach for your phone. You will search, schedule, manage it like a problem with a solution. Somewhere quiet in the back of your mind, you might also make a silent deal with fate, with the universe, with something you cannot name, promising that if you get through this, you will change something. And in that moment, you will be doing exactly what a Roman citizen did 2,000 years ago, lying on the cold floor of a temple, waiting for the god to speak.